Welcome back to GeoMoney Insight. Today we're unpacking a topic that has become central to global politics, economics, and modern conflict. Why do sanctions fail, and how have sanctioned regimes built one of the most advanced illicit trade ecosystems on Earth? Our discussion today is based on a detailed research paper titled The Anatomy of Sanctions Failure, a deep dive into circumvention networks and the illicit profits they generate. It's a stunning deep dive into how Russia, Iran, North Korea, and their enablers systematically defeat sanctions through maritime shadow fleets, crypto laundering, corporate front networks, and long-term financial realignment.
Absolutely. And the paper makes a crucial point right at the start. Sanctions don't fail because evaders are clever. They fail because the system enforcing them is fundamentally broken. Two pillars of systemic paralysis define this failure. The UN Security Council cannot enforce its own resolutions because P5 members can veto any action against themselves or their allies. Global monitoring and compliance mechanisms are weak, inconsistent, and easily manipulated. The result is predictable. Sanctions aren't just ineffective, they actively incentivize the creation of illicit global trade networks.
Let's start with the core structural failure, the UNSC. The paper argues that the veto system doesn't just limit its power, it makes real sanctions enforcement impossible. For example, since February 2022, Russia has repeatedly vetoed attempts to impose meaningful consequences for its invasion of Ukraine, and the United States has done the same for Israel since October 2023. So the very states responsible for peace and accountability can simply opt out of it.
Exactly. And this paralysis has real-world effects. Take the 2024 shutdown of the UN's expert panel on North Korea sanctions, a body responsible for independent monitoring of evasion networks. The moment the panel was dissolved, a complete information blackout emerged. North Korea resumed unmonitored weapons transfers and technology smuggling to support Russia's procurement efforts. No panel, no oversight, no consequences.
And even when sanctions are adopted, national-level enforcement is inconsistent and often compromised.
Right. One example in the paper, self-blinding, where banks or companies deliberately ignore red flags, even when the law obliges them to investigate. The U.S. alone has issued 10-plus categories of mandatory red flags, high-priority items lists, suspicious customer profiles, transactional anomalies, destination country alerts, and more. And yet violations continue, not because systems don't exist, but because compliance is inconvenient.
Let's stay on the national level. The paper highlights several cases showing systemic weaknesses even in advanced regulatory systems. One example is the 2025 OFSI fine against HSF Moscow, £460,000 for making funds available to designated individuals during the office wind-down. This wasn't a shady operation. It happened during routine corporate restructuring.
Exactly. And that's the point. Sanctions evasion thrives on the ordinary failure of compliance, not extraordinary criminality. Add to this the complexity of modern supply chains. Sanctioned regimes manipulate parallel imports, falsified certificates of origin, oil blending, intermediate processing in third countries. Russia, for example, has used members of the Eurasian Economic Union, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Armenia, Kyrgyzstan, to route restricted goods since 2014. This is why Russia's GDP fell less than expected in 2022 through 2023. The system allowed evasion to become standard operating procedure.
Let's shift to the most dramatic arena of sanctions evasion, the sea. The maritime domain has become a battlefield, not metaphorically, but literally, where shadow fleets move sanctioned oil, weapons, and goods with stunning sophistication.
Yes, one of the shocking findings, China operates a 550-tanker shadow fleet, up from just 70 in 2020. These ships move Iranian and Russian oil, often labeled as Malaysian, with payments processed through RMB clearing and Hong Kong shell companies. By late 2024, S&P Global estimated that 17% of the entire world's oil tanker fleet is shadow fleet.
And the tactics? They read like a spy thriller.
Absolutely. The core techniques include AIS disabling, ship-to-ship transfers, flag laundering, shell company ownership webs, jurisdictional arbitrage. Russia routinely disables AIS and omits destinations from public databases. About one-third of Sovcomflot's fleet engages in this tactic. North Korea pioneered similar methods decades earlier. And then there's the EU response, adding 105 vessels to the Shadow Fleet blacklist in just one sanctions package, raising the total banned fleet to 444. But enforcement can't keep up.
The paper paints a vivid picture of transshipment hubs, the middlemen of global evasion.
Yes, these hubs are essential nodes where goods are relabeled, repackaged, or laundered into legitimacy. Major hubs include UAE, Turkey, Morocco, India, Central Asia, Hong Kong, and mainland China. One example, Iran procured U.S. technology for Mahajer-6 drones through UAE shells. Another, Sino Group in Hong Kong shipped over $27 million in microelectronics to Russia via multiple front companies. These aren't holes in the system, these are the system.
Now let's talk about the digital frontier, arguably the most disruptive domain of modern sanctions evasion.
Cryptocurrency has become a lifeline for sanctioned states. In 2024 alone, sanctioned jurisdictions received $15.8 billion in crypto, representing 39% of all illicit transactions worldwide. Iran's outflows through centralized exchanges reached $4.18 billion, a 70% increase in 1 year.
And OFAC's response?
13 crypto-related designations in 2024, the second highest in 7 years. Cases highlighted in the paper: KB Vostok 000 in Russia, using crypto to fund UAV development. Cryptex processing nearly $6 billion since 2018. PM2BTC labeled a primary money laundering concern. And then there's North Korea, the most advanced cybercriminal state on Earth. Between 2020 and 2023, North Korean hackers stole $3 billion in cryptocurrency. This isn't evasion, this is revenue generation.
And yet, even older systems like Hawala remain central.
Exactly. Iran and North Korea still rely heavily on Hawala networks to bypass traditional banking entirely. No digital trail, no correspondent banks, no SWIFT. A perfect system for sanctions-proof finance.
One of the strongest sections of the paper highlights the enablers, companies, banks, and states that make evasion profitable.
Right. The evasion ecosystem depends on shell companies, logistics firms, financial institutions, procurement specialists, cyber criminal groups, and even entire governments. Examples include MG Flot operating AIS-disabled Russian weapons ships, Bex Ship Management in Turkey managing 37 Ghost Fleet vessels, Standard Chartered $677 million fine, BNP Paribas $8.9 billion penalty, ZTE exporting U.S. tech to Iran, and the biggest enabler, China. China accounts for up to 89% of all high-priority items entering Russia, whether produced in China, in Western-owned Chinese factories, or transshipped through its territory. China is the industrial engine of the sanctions evasion world.
Let's talk money, because the scale of illicit profit is staggering.
Absolutely. From 2000 to 2024, $47.7 billion in major AML and sanctions-related fines, $18.7 billion specifically for sanctions violations. 99% of sanctions fines by value were issued by the U.S. But here's the catch. The profits often exceed the penalties. Examples: radiation-hardened wafer sold for $125,000 each. $200 million laundered through crypto by TGR, luxury assets like BMW 740i, Sea Ray yachts purchased with evasion profits, Vexelberg's $90 million yacht Tango. This is a global black economy, and it's thriving.
Finally, let's talk about the future. The paper argues that evasion is entering a new phase, structural, not tactical.
Correct. Key long-term trends include de-dollarization. Russia made yuan its most used foreign currency by 2023. Parallel financial messaging systems, Russia's SPFS, China's potential expansion, domestic card networks like Mir bypass Visa and MasterCard, alternative clearing ecosystems built around CPIPs, AI-enhanced supply chain evasion. This is no longer about evading sanctions temporarily. It's about building a parallel world economy structurally immune to Western pressure.
So, what's the takeaway?
That sanctions, as currently designed, are easy to evade, slow to enforce, profitable to bypass, and structurally incapable of changing state behavior. The illicit economy created by sanctions is now so large, so interconnected, and so profitable that dismantling it would require rebuilding global financial governance from the ground up.
Sanctions haven't just failed, they've created the most adaptive black market network in modern history, and the world is now living with the consequences.